most such annual events grow from strength to strength. And I think Professor Vedkumari also pointed it out. However, if the first edition of a conference is a success, you can set your visions very high. And I always believe that you need to dream big and plan big if you desire to grow big. I'm just coming from the Global FinTech Fest, or GFF 2024. Which was the 5th edition of the annual event. It was graced by the who's who of the financial services industry in India and abroad. Besides, the Honorable Prime Minister himself, whose keynote address underscored India's role as a global fintech hub. There were 120 central bankers from 27 countries and delegates from over 50 countries, with footfalls exceeding 100,000 over 3 days. So that was the scale of the conference. And it also shows how intertwined the fintech system is with the financial services industry. I was fortunate to represent the insolvency ecosystem in the GFF, and we had 2 launches during the 3-day event. One of them was with a large foreign bank. As we saw in the GFF, the financial services industry has realized that technology and innovation are the only way forward. In our country, it all started with Aadhaar. Every Indian a digital identity. The trinity of Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, often known as JAM, has ensured that almost everyone in India has a bank account and a mobile. In fact, Ms. Nandan Nilikani often recounts that how Aadhaar helped a company like Jio onboard customers. Subsequently, of course, we had the UPI, which ensured that one has easy access to funds transfer and take the benefit of various services through one's bank account. And when the entire country was affected due to COVID, the government could reach out to large segments of the underprivileged through the DBT, or direct benefit transfer mechanism. This access to banking services also leads to formalization of the economy, which in turn leads to transparency and also facilitates the larger objective of financial inclusion. As on date, we should all be proud to note that our digital public infrastructure, often known as DPI, is regarded as the best in the world. This gives a lot of potential for entrepreneurs to conceive various business models. We at National E-Governance Services realized that to achieve economies of scale, you have to conceive for the larger financial services industry and then deploy these services for the use of the insolvency ecosystem. NeSL's EBG platform gives at a glance all the bank guarantees issued by and in favor of a corporate debtor which is into insolvency. Thus, the insolvency professional in a corporate insolvency resolution process can immediately assess the contingent liabilities of the corporate debtor. There was a recent case when an insolvency professional discovered to his horror that the bank guarantee submitted by a resolution applicant was in fact forged and not genuine. If it's an e-bank guarantee issued by NeSL, it can be instantly verified on the NeSL portal. I saw the agenda of the conference and I'm very happy to note there is a section on MSMEs. MSMEs have a special place in the economy. They are the largest sources of employment for our youth. Moreover, in a scenario where there is often talk that while we have growth, we don't have jobs, we should encourage our youth to take up entrepreneurship. So instead of looking for jobs, they can be in a position to generate employment for others. India has one of the largest startup ecosystems, and the government, in a very landmark reform, has abolished the angel tax, which was a long-standing demand of the startup community. Even in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, there was always a special place for the MSMEs. Section 240A of the IPC gives MSMEs certain benefits which are not available to others. Again, the pre-packs which were launched some time back are only for MSMEs. And most recently, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India has put out a discussion paper which would further facilitate identification of MSMEs in the insolvency resolution process. Recently, I was in a conference in Delhi. I spoke about how NeSL as a company could provide solutions to the problems which MSMEs often face. I also made a reference to my article which was recently published in the Financial Express as to how MSMEs could take advantage of an information utility like NeSL to recover the deals. During the conference, a very interesting question was put to me. An entrepreneur spoke about how she was finding it extremely difficult to compete with low-priced imported products. I suggested that we should compete on our strengths. The government had introduced two landmark reforms. I had earlier spoken about IBC. Similarly, entrepreneurs, even if they are in the MSME segment, should embrace GST or Goods and Services Tax. Now, GST is not about simplification of taxes. It's not about formalization of economy. It's much more. The database of receivables in GST can open the doors of credit for MSMEs. Even as I speak, many banks have launched GST-based products which can help MSMEs avail credit facilities. Why this is important? Because in general, most MSMEs find difficulty in accessing credit lines from banks. The fact that GST collections have been increasing rapidly over the years shows that how this reform can play an increasingly important role in the growth and development of our country. I also understand that there is a session today on women in leadership roles. As students of law, we would be aware that the Companies Act provides that there has to be a women director on every listed company and other companies based on some criteria. However, giving women the rightful representation is not just about compliance with the law. It is much more. It is well established that companies with diversity, whether in gender or in community, in leadership roles, perform better as well. I'm proud to say that NeSL has a company, has a women director. It's not required by law to have one. Our executive director is participating in the session on women in leadership roles. This conference is about insolvency, it's about IBC. Now, IBC in its 8th year, it's well accepted fact that it is a success story. And it's not just about relation to banks and financial institutions through the IBC process, which in any case has smashed all records. The realization which achieved from IBC is much higher than any other comparable modes of debt resolution of banks and financial institutions. There's something more to it. A recent IIM Ahmedabad study found that resolutions under the IBC, companies which went through resolution process under the IBC have significantly improved their performance even in the post-resolution period on many parameters. Meanwhile, we have some data points. In FY 2024, the number of resolutions under IBC were 269, which was the highest ever. In this financial year, up to the first quarter, we have 58. So we are well on track to achieving and maybe even improving on what was done last year. There's one more facet about the IBC. It is said that there's a behavioral change where today borrowers are very keen to have a resolution with their lenders when they are unable to repay their debts. We talked about the achievements of IBC. But in my opinion, the biggest achievement of IBC is the birth of a new class of professionals called the insolvency professionals. The insolvency professionals, IPs, had the baptism by fire. We know that one was arrested. Many had FIRs registered against them by the police. Some were obstructed from performing the duties under the IBC and to take police help. In the face of all these challenges, IPs have delivered. One company which was under insolvency achieved its highest ever production during the insolvency process when the IP was at the helm of affairs. And what is the biggest contribution of insolvency professionals? Is it the recovery of bank dues or the resolution of companies? I would say the biggest contribution is that they have saved lives. That's because what's a life without livelihood? When in IBPI, I used to get scores of emails from companies begging for assistance from employees, from employees begging for assistance only to get back their rightful dues. I visited one large company which was under insolvency, which had more than 20,000 employees. One can well imagine the relief for them when the company became solvent under new owners. So, what is the achievement of IPs? The achievement of IPs is that by rescuing jobs through a resolution plan, IPs have given life to many. Of course, IBC had a fair share of success, but we need to be ready with the next generation of reforms, which I think will follow soon, going by the announcements made by the Honorable Finance Minister in this year's budget speech. Another important development is the proposed launch of integrated technology platform for insolvency ecosystem. If we are able to go by the experience of the banking industry, technology will be an important factor to drive efficiencies and improve performance even as far as the insolvency ecosystem is concerned. Finally, as Indians, we should all be proud to know that we are in an enviable position as one of the fastest growing large economies in the world. And this growth is believed to be on firm foundation. That's because there has been massive investments in physical infrastructure to improve logistics, which was usually a pain point for industry. Also, there have been efforts to develop a manufacturing capabilities, especially in new areas like chip manufacturing. And these are likely to support our economic growth in the coming years. Tax reforms like GST I had mentioned has ensured formalization of economy. It also gives the government headroom to undertake capital expenditure and also reach out to the underprivileged sections of the society, especially in the remote places. Our banking system is in a sweet spot. NPAs or non-performing assets are at multi-year lows. And banks today have embraced digitalization and innovation to make banking so easy, convenient, and most important, available to all. I think many of us are using banking services would have experienced that. Of course, we have to be guard on issues like cybersecurity and non-performing assets. However, with the IBC and other information systems, an alert regulator and Reserve Bank of India, it is expected that our banks and financial institutions will have the capacity to support the growing economy and also the aspirations of a young population. I'm sure that the deliberations in the conference will throw up enough ideas so that we stay the course and realize the Honorable PM's vision of a Viksit Bharat by 2047. I thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to be part of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.